Welcome to 5 Stripe Weekly, everyone. This week we preview that final home match of the season against Chicago Fire, and we announce the winner of our 50th episode giveaway. All that and more, coming up.
Welcome to the show, 5 Stripe fam. I'm AJ, this is Tanner McLeod. Before we get into it, become a member of the notification squad by hitting the bell next to the subscribe button. Guys, with the international break and no match to recap, let's get right into the news. And first piece of news is that Atlanta United are nominated for a lot of year-end MLS awards, including Miguel Almiron and Jose Martinez as MVP.
They're trying to split the vote. Lame.
I know, right? But no, there's a bunch of other MLS players in there, like Zlatan, like Rooney in there. So it's going to be a difficult one, but I think probably in the end easy for us to prognosticate, at least biased wise. Yeah. But LGP and Michael Parkhurst are nominated for Defender of the Year. You have Ezequiel Barco nominated for Newcomer of the Year. You have Brad Guzan nominated for two things, for Goalkeeper of the Year and for Humanitarian of the Year. And then you also have Coach Tata Martino in the running for Coach of the Year. And you also have, I think that's it, yeah. And so
it's hard to keep track because there's a lot of rewards. It's a lot. But to be fair, with the season we've been having, that's not really overly shocking. I think for me, the ones that stand out, I think Joseph Martinez should win MVP. If you break the single season goal record, I mean, goals is the one thing that you can pretty much quantify over an entire soccer season. And
it's a sexy number.
It's the number that's the easiest to point to. I mean, it's got to be that guy. I think Miggy has had a good season, but he hasn't set the world alight in that sense. And if you had to pick someone above Miggy, I think Zlatan's going to pull a lot of that vote as well. I mean, because as much as, we want an Atlanta player to win, he's done a lot for LA Galaxy, as has Wayne Rooney for DC United. My problem with that is he's only been there half the season, and you shouldn't, you got to take account of a guy over a full 34 game, run. And Joseph Martinez has been banging in goals all season, and he's been key to the, Atlanta doing what it has been doing. Yeah, Tata Martino for Coach of the Year, I think that's pretty straightforward, especially if Atlanta break the record for points and win Supporter Shield. Outside of that, I'm not really so sure, but I think those two for sure, MVP and Coach of the Year, definitely should have an Atlanta United name next to him when the awards are announced.
Yeah. I think, Jose Martinez, with him, breaking the record and setting the record, in a record-setting type of season for Atlanta United, I think that definitely has to, put him like way high up there, especially, or even just winning it outright, because absolutely he deserves it. Tata Martino, I think he has a shout in there. I think Bob Bradley has a conversation in that as well, unfortunately. But I know a bunch of U.S. men's national team fans definitely don't like Bob Bradley. But it's hard to argue what he's done in for an inaugural season for LAFC, whether you want to call them Chivas USA or whatever. But LGP and Michael Parkhurst, I think, have a decent shout, but I think one of the Red Bulls, unfortunately, probably will win it. And I mean, Brad Guzan, he's had a great season, but it's a matter of, has he had the most prolific of a goalkeeper season? I don't know. So tough.
I mean, it's hard when, Atlanta always ships that obligatory goal at the end of games, and they should have a clean sheet, and they rock. Yeah. I mean, because if you have, 10, 15 clean sheets, it's easy to make that argument going, he hasn't been conceding goals, but every time it almost never fails into the game, last 10, 15 minutes, that we've completely dominated, and crap goal. I mean, look no further than that Revolution match, where it's just like, really? This team's done nothing all game, and you're going to give them that goal and lose the clean sheet? It's just frustrating, and it's not always his fault, you know. So it's like it's one of those difficult things. And goalkeeping, it's kind of difficult to find who is the best goalkeeper, because do you want to measure it on saves, because that could also depend on bad teams usually have a lot more saves, or who has the
Guzan, he's been on a good team where he hasn't had to make as many saves, and so his numbers are a little bit more down than.
Exactly. So, I mean, if you have someone, on like a San Jose, like they're going to face a whole heck of a lot more shots than Brad Guzan is. So, it's kind of difficult to kind of judge that award. So, I don't know. I mean, I love LGP and I love Parkey, but I don't know if either of them you could point to definitively and say, Defender of the Year. I mean, if you wanted to say ball-playing Defender of the Year, I'd pick LGP every single time, because that dude, loves to pick out a pass. But I mean, that's not how that award goes. But as long as they get MVP and Coach of the Year, I'd be happy. And especially, and we'll get into it, absolutely moving on. But if Tata is moving on, I think it'd be nice for him to get that Coach of the Year. as a
a send off,
as a send off, maybe just something saying
that,
affirming how good he's been for the club. That being said, I'd rather just stay and not go somewhere else.
Absolutely, for sure. But yeah, voting kicks off October 15th, and the nominees are announced on October 31st. And those are voted on by the players, by the media, and by the staff. And so, we'll find out, and we'll talk about it then as well. But moving on, Brad Guzan, speaking of him, he starts for the U.S. men's national team against Peru. This was recorded on a Tuesday night, so best of luck. We'll see.
It's a whole bunch of youngins in front of him.
Exactly.
It's him and a bunch of people. He's probably been playing just as long as they have been alive.
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah, at least maybe a third more. Yeah. Or something like that. But anyway, yeah, so good luck to them, and you guys will probably find out already what the result of that is before we even know. So
hopefully he keeps a clean sheet. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
And doesn't get injured.
That's the baseline there for
Those
sure.
Two. They're preferably the not injured part more than anything else.
Right. Because yeah, I mean, there was that where Tito was injured during the training from when his in his time with Paraguay. Over the international break, Jose Martinez has luckily come back without any issues, so that's good. And you also have George Bello, with the U17s and just a cracking free kick. And
to win the damn tournament for him. To win the damn thing.
Not too shabby.
He's good at this whole ball sport thing.
Exactly. And a pretty decent international break. Tito hopefully isn't too injured. We'll get into that a little later. But yeah, next piece of news is that LGP, he has kind of talked about MLS's reputation in Argentina. How basically this was in The Athletic that it's a type of thing where it's not exactly looked upon as the greatest league in Argentina, but he's found himself kind of defending it, especially being here, and he's seen the quality of this league and how competitive it is, and it's a great piece. And so just if you don't have The Athletic, hop over and read that. But it's pretty much he said that it's a uninformed perspective. Basically, he had the same doubts himself.
But I mean, I think right now, before Atlanta United, you didn't really see a large influx of Argentinian players or players who had been playing in that league coming to Major League Soccer. But you're seeing that kind of develop into...
Especially the younger ones.
Yeah, especially the younger ones develop into a trend, not just for Atlanta, but throughout the league. And I think that'll continue. When you have players coming here doing well and eventually moving on to bigger leagues, specifically Europe, that's going to draw more interest because these players are going to realize, hey, this could be a good jumping point for me to come to, do well, and then get that next step. And so, by following this formula, I think the league will continue to grow there and its influence will continue to grow there, and we'll continue to see good young players making that transition from playing in Argentina to Major League Soccer and then moving on to Europe.
Yeah, and that's definitely the goal with Miguel Almirón, Tito Villalba maybe even, or Jose Martinez, yeah.
Ezequiel Barco.
And another athletic piece, Craig Garza talked about his superstitions, especially with the whole October and Halloween superstitions and all that. But where basically he's been using the same shin guards since his U14 days with the U.S. men's national team.
They're still, or the
youth team. Yeah, I mean, I guess shin guards don't really.
But I feel like you've grown since you're 14, and I feel like the space they cover might be smaller.
Like Jose Martinez, he wears just like the smallest ones possible, and he wears it as low as possible. Yeah. So it could be something where it doesn't really just one part of his shin. Maybe,
I don't know.
I think there was an interesting part in the end of that article, though, is that they did lose the kit team did lose his shin guards. So
I hope they find them.
Yeah,
that would not be good for whoever lost them.
He says they're his treasure, and if they didn't find him or if they lost him, bad news. But hopefully they find him, and when he comes back playing for the team, it's he's got those same shin guards. But next piece of news is that the Atlanta United Dream tryouts are being held again, which found a player like Kevin Barajas, who found him playing a lot for Atlanta United too. And this could be you. A lot of you have asked us about how can I just get a tryout with the team and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, this is how you can get in front of their scouts. And it's November 15th. Last year, I believe it was December, but, you know, this year it's a little earlier. But, yeah, you know, there's the link in the description box below, and just, you know, sign up for that if you're over 17 and want to try to see if you can make it on Atlanta United. But
yep, I know I can't. If you see me playing five-a-side at the West End pitches, you know why. I'm terrible.
Yeah, but you know, it's not a knock on you know, your prowess or anything like that.
No, I think it's really cool the fact that the team does this to begin with. I
Yeah.
mean, you have a guy like Barajas last year, who's getting to play a lot for the USL team. I think it's really cool. You know, it shows they're engaged with their community, and who knows? I mean, speaking of those five-a-side pitches, I've seen people out there who are really good at this sport. And I mean, you never know. Sometimes things have never happened. You never got a chance. Just go out there and show what you got, and who knows? I mean, that's what they're called, dream trials. I mean, the fact that they've had the precedent of signing someone from it, I mean, really, who knows? So whoever goes, good luck to everyone. Have fun, and you know, if you get signed, we'll definitely be talking about you on this show.
Yeah, and that might be really cool, and you should, you know, totally hit us up later and you know, mention.
Beat me in FIFA or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right, exactly. But next piece of news comes from Atlanta United themselves, and they put out a video of Darren Eales pretty much trying out for the Falcons, essentially, because their kicker just went down.
Yeah, Matt Bryant got hurt.
Yeah, and so basically, yeah, Darren Eales, what a leg, what, 52 yards?
52 yards. Would not have expected that from him, but well done.
Ain't too shabby. And wow, I mean, it's just
I could not kick a 52-yard field goal.
Yeah.
I could not do it. I would probably kick it straight into the ground and it'd bounce there. I don't even know. But the fact that he did it was impressive, and hey, who knows, maybe they need you on Monday night. Because, yeah, half that team is injured now, so...
It's not looking good for the Falcons at the moment, but...
Not a Falcons fan, so I don't care.
Yeah, but, you know, good luck to them. But let's get into the rumors of this week, and there's been a plenty for sure. And last week we talked about Pity Martinez and how he was linked with us, and yeah, LGP had, you know, a couple words to say about Pity as well. And he told Argentinian radio that, "We're delighted that players like Pity Martinez are interested in coming. I hope it becomes a reality. Pity is a great player. He has characteristics that are similar to Miguel Miron's characteristics. He wouldn't have any problem adapting in Atlanta United." And he also mentioned that if Almiron leaves for Arsenal, the ideal replacement would be Pity. Hopefully it happens. He also talked about if Tata Martino left, he said, "I hope it would be to manage the Argentine national team and not somewhere else." Yeah, I mean, especially yeah, with the next rumor that pops up.
Speaking on Tata.
Yeah, speaking on Tata. Yeah, so Gerardo Tata Martino is linked with the Mexican national team.
It's pretty damn heavy at this point.
Yeah, it's hot and heavy. It's you know, Azteca Deportes, a big Mexican outlet, is reporting that you know, some really reputable people are saying that it's probably going to happen, and it's going to be announced on December 8th, which is very interestingly enough the date of the MLS Cup.
If we're there, it will not be on that date. It'll be after it.
Yeah, definitely. And
that'll be pushed.
So, you know, all this, it leads to a lot of speculation, obviously, like how true are these reports, but, you know, whether they're true or not, essentially it's this. I mean, you know, Tata Martino has a decision to make, and we haven't really been given an answer yet. And, you know, Atlanta United maybe have already made the decision, maybe haven't. Maybe there still are negotiations to be had. We won't know for a while, I think, at least you know, a couple weeks or 3 weeks.
I think we'll probably find out as soon as Atlanta United's season ends, wherever that is. You'll probably get your answer not too far after that. Whether that's, you know, conference semifinals, finals, MLS Cup at some point in time. Whenever the season ends, I think is when that information will happen. I don't think it serves the team any benefit to have it announced before. So I think that, yeah, whenever the season is over, we'll find out, I think, pretty quickly about the destination of Tata. For a while, you know, I've you know, been able to bat away these reports just because they've been from unreliable sources, but they are picking up steam, and they are starting to be reported by outlets that genuinely tend to be reliable most of the time. So that is a worry for Atlanta United. I think for me, you kind of have to embrace the idea that yes, he may go. He doesn't tend to stay in places for too long. The rumors are of his wife not being settled here. I mean, I think this is a great job for him. I think he has no real pressure here. I'd love to see him stay. If he goes, I'd prefer it to be to a national team, so players can't really follow him in a sense. Because, I mean, a lot of these players came to Atlanta United because of Tata Martino. That being said, I think now that they're here, they realize Atlanta is an amazing place, and I have full faith in the front office to find a suitable replacement, because I think that two of the main characteristics you're looking for is probably someone who's Spanish speaking, who plays attacking football. There's a lot of names out there that they could go for in that regard. So, I don't know who those names would be, because I never even imagined Tata Martino would manage Atlanta United in the first place. So if he does end up moving on, I'm confident in our front office, because they've shown that they're going to do their due diligence and make the right decision for the club. So it's going to happen. I mean, if a manager comes here, especially if they're younger and they're successful, bigger jobs are out there other than Atlanta United. As hard as that may be to sound or the pill to swallow, Major League Soccer isn't the destination league right now. If someone does well here, bigger fish will come and try to get them. So it's just going to be the same thing as it is with players, and I guess we're going to have to get used to that, as frustrating as it may be.
And Miguel Almiron, rumors continue to swirl, and the latest one was him linked with Dortmund, and yeah, it's one of those. The site itself is a tabloid, essentially.
Sport. It's a German tabloid.
Yeah.
They're not the most reliable.
Exactly, and so you also have a number that's 13 euros. It's probably a little low than what Darren Eales would want.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the 11 million pounds or whatever is 13 million euros, they're pretty much in the same ballpark, and that's not even close. I think that Atlanta are definitely looking for a figure over 20.
Right, and that's not even to talk about what was in the article, which essentially is just
nonsense.
It's just, again, more dart throwing onto the dartboard, where they're just name, and it's like, because Sancho is
they said because of Jadon Sancho and Christian Pulisic. Both are teenagers. Miguel Almiron's 24. I don't know how those things connect to each other, but transfer season, yay!
It's silly, and it gets sillier, and so
silly season.
Believe at your own peril, but we're telling you that this is a not very believable one. So
when numbers are this low, and Darren Eales is on record saying it's going to take triple that amount, I don't know if triple is how much, because that'd be in the 30 million range, but I think if a number's below 20, it's probably not going to happen, because in today's market, especially with European clubs, especially when English clubs are linked, like an Arsenal, like we said last week, it's going to be a lot higher, because those clubs have money to spend.
Yep. And moving on into Atlanta United 2, they won their last match of the inaugural season 3-2 with a Lagos Kunga brace, and what a performance he had.
He left about 5 guys for dead on that one goal.
Yeah.
I mean, goodness gracious me, dribbled past all of them and picked up the. Mind you, it was a bit of a slow roller, but he had left everyone for dead beforehand, so I didn't really care about the finish.
Yeah, it didn't really matter at that point, but it got to a nail biter at the end, because they were leading 3-0 at one point. So yeah, I mean, it was a good match, and I was there. I enjoyed it. It was definitely a very decent atmosphere for Atlanta United 2, and it was good to see off the inaugural season with the win. A tumultuous season, but I think it served the purpose of what the USL team was there to begin with, and it saw a lot of the fringe players get a lot of time. It saw a lot of the academy players get a lot of time. And it saw a lot of just guys that were going to really need minutes, like an Andrew Carlton, like a Lagos Kunga, really see more time than if we didn't have it. So, and by all means, I think it was a success in the club's mind. In terms of maybe the standings, maybe not the best, but I think a lot of players that we maybe would not have seen minutes saw a lot of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, a large percentage of players, I think it was 19 players under 20 years old saw playing time, and saw a large chunk of playing time. And for me, at the beginning of the season, when we talked about this team happening, was I don't care about the results. I care about these young guys getting minutes against grown men who are playing professional football. And that's what they did. And I think that experience will be invaluable for them moving forward, because they're playing against guys, 10, 12 years older than them at times. and they're going to learn a lot more from playing in that environment than from playing against people and kids their age who are nowhere near as good as they are. Because let's be honest, some of these kids are really, really good. I mean, you see George Bello, what he's doing, at the MLS level. He's not going to learn anything by playing against other 16, 17-year-olds in MLS Academy sides. So getting minutes at that level and then, being able to make that next step up, that's the important thing, not the results. And I think as time goes on, maybe they get things a bit more figured out when it comes to who's playing where, how many players are playing. I mean, because they had 44 players total play for them over the course of the season. That is absolutely insane. Usually you have maybe 25, 26 players play for a team throughout a season. They had 44.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, because also, a lot of the academy players, they moved on into college or whatnot and that type of stuff. So, yeah, that's how you can fathom that type of number. But what was interesting for me was that like some MLS super draft players like John Gallagher or Gordon Wild or players like that. It was interesting to see their trajectory, and so John Gallagher was kept at Atlanta United too. Gordon Wild was moved on loan to Charleston Battery. Like Patrick Okonkwo was also moved on to Charleston Battery to get some more time. But John Gallagher, who was leading the team in goals earlier in the season, was moved into a right back position. Very, very, strangely. I don't know. But, maybe it's to shore up our lack of depth in the, within our system at right back. But, yeah, I mean, it was strange to see a guy who, came in as a forward and pretty much move into a defensive position. Very interesting, but I think maybe he will see more time there, and maybe it's a good thing.
I have no idea. To be perfectly honest with you, I have no idea. It's just, it was really convoluted for a lot of the season, which is why they lost so many games. But, again, not to, beat a dead horse. In my opinion, I think it did the job it was supposed to do, and, it's going to continue doing that job moving forward. Yeah.
I think one thing is that I hope Chris Gosselin sees more time because he saw a criminally he didn't see a lot.
Not enough in my opinion. But we're going to move on from Atlanta United 2. We will get into the standings. Some teams actually still played through the international break. DC United being one of them. They got a win. I don't really like DC United very much. I know you don't really either.
Not too fun.
Not many Atlanta fans do for rather obvious reasons. They are kind of solidifying their spots in the playoff right now. They're in 6th right now, and they have a chance to move up even higher, which could be interesting when you consider that Atlanta United could finish 2nd, which could see a potential matchup with DC United in that first round for Atlanta United of the conference semifinals. But right now, it is still Atlanta United and Red Bulls. Neither of us played over international break. We are currently on 66 points. They are on 65. We'll get into the preview this weekend about what could happen as far as the Supporter Shield goes, but things are pretty tight. Playoff race is shaping up, and I think the 6 that we have right now will end up being the 6 that we see at season's end. Currently, that will be Atlanta United, New York Red Bulls, NYCFC, Philadelphia Union, Columbus Crew, because they're always there, and they're staying in Columbus, by the way, good for them, and DC United. So that's what we have right now. We'll have a little bit more on that definitely after this weekend.
Definitely. And, we only need 1 point to get into the Champions League, and so hopefully we can at least get a result this weekend, and then we will play against some really, really tough sides, but it should be a fun tournament to be part of next season. But,
actually, speaking of the Champions League and kind of going out of, we didn't really have this in the news, but this past week, I imagine you definitely saw the news of the whole idea of the North American Super League being floated about as maybe a post-World Cup 2026 type thing happening, where obviously the Champions League would go away, but they would combine Liga MX and Major League Soccer into one massive league. I guess if that was a scenario, you'd have to have Pro Rel in that case, but that would be a very, very crazy type of league where Atlanta would be put in an interesting position because I think you'd have more money coming into the league, and I think Atlanta as a city and as a club would be in position to be one of those top leagues, but that would really make, the sport in North America very, very interesting.
I think so. Yeah, it would make it where I think it's a very have and have nots type of league for sure. And I think we would be rest assured that I think Arthur Blank would really try to be one of those haves and pump as much money as possible to really, you know, up that that value and up our team, and you know, try to win as many things as possible. So it might be a good thing. I think.
I mean, but who knows where Major League Soccer will be, you know, 8 years from now as well. I mean, I just found it interesting, you know, because with CONCACAF Champions League, that basically would almost go away because there'd be no point for it at that. But I mean, who knows what will happen in the next 8 years or so, how successful United will be as a club, where we'll be. I mean, because like you said, I think it would definitely be a very much have and a have-not league. The money going in would be a lot more, so for the clubs that could afford to do it, I think it would be worth their time. But I think you'd have a lot of clubs that would struggle, and if there was a pro rel, you'd have permanent, you know, bottom seller teams that would never really see that big league. Then again, maybe it would make the sport more popular and mean more if you have that threat of pro rel, but who knows? That's a lot of land area to cover for as far as travel is. But
and that was my next point, is that it's going to be extremely difficult on the players, on just scheduling, on it's going to be
4 time zones, a whole hell of a lot of miles. I mean, not to be mean, but you also have security concerns amongst traveling different areas in Latin America where you'd have these games happening. I mean, there's a whole heck of a lot to go on. I just found it a very interesting report to read and a very interesting idea. I still prefer the Champions League, I think. I think that's probably the better version of things, especially with how the sport's growing here, you know, where you have more clubs coming in and more clubs trying to follow the model that Atlanta United have put forward of how they're, you know, buying and structuring their club. So we'll see. I don't know. I just found it very interesting, and I thought we should at least talk about it. For sure. It was one of those news articles that caught my attention when I read it this past week. And being an international break, you're always going to have crazy stuff like that coming up. For
sure. Yeah. It was. I don't know if it was Friday, but it was probably one of those like Friday news drops where it was just like, oh, and
here's an idea. Let's come up with something crazy and put it out there because we have nothing to talk about.
Exactly. But also the MLS playoff dates were announced, and essentially, you have, at least relevant to us, we have November 4th and 11th, where you know, for us, our 11th would be our home date, and I think playoff tickets are on sale now, so if you haven't already, you know, go ahead and get those.
That'll be a loud and proud 72,000, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And then you have the 25th and the 29th, depending on, you know, who gets past and whatnot. That will be in the semifinals, and then you have the final on December 8th. And so, you know, circle those dates for sure. Hopefully we get to those dates and we go
all the way to that final and win that cup. The one thing I hate about MLS playoffs is the fact that there's a flipping international break in the middle of the conference semifinals and conference finals. Why?
Yeah, it's
just why. If Atlanta United are playing in the conference finals, which in my opinion they should be because they're one of the best teams in the league, whoever's on international duty, if you get caught, just don't go. Like it's like, oh, we need Miguel Almiron and just no, you don't. No, they can't go. They're locked in their hotel. They misplaced their keys. They lost their passport. They can't go anywhere because it's the most inopportune time for any international.
And it kills
break.
Momentum. It kills just like I think interest from fans as well. It's difficult, obviously, but you know, we'll power through it. Hopefully, you know, that's something that we'll just, you know,
we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
We'll get through it. But next thing is we're gonna move on into the mailbag, and you guys sent in these questions from IG Story. Thank you guys so much for sending them. Continue to do so, and your question might be answered in a future show. But first question comes from Warner Rhymes. He asks, which is a more likely destination for Miggy, Arsenal or Dortmund?
That's a very interesting question. Obviously, he's been rumored to both. I think he's going to be linked to even more clubs between now and January. I'm not an Arsenal fan. We have some people on the show who are. And I know you like keeping it under wraps, but let's be honest, you and Devin have talked about it before. I mean, I think he could fit well at Arsenal. I mean, I don't pretend to follow them nearly as much as I do, obviously, Manchester United, but he's the biggest positive for Miguel Almiron, I think, isn't, you know, maybe his technical skill, it's his work rate. I mean, he's a player that works incredibly hard. You have to have that in the Premier League. It's a very fast up and down game. I think he'd suit well in that aspect. Maybe the physicality might be too much for him. I'm surprised he hasn't been linked to maybe more teams in Spain or maybe even in Italy. I'd prefer maybe in Spain because the game's a bit, you know, quicker. In Italy, I think they're on the come up again, but it's a bit slower, a bit more physical compared to maybe other leagues. I don't know. I really don't know. I think that it depends on what club comes up with the money that Atlanta United find acceptable. I think you're looking at least $20 million. I think that's a low bar for that offer, which you're going to get a more chance of that from a team in England with that money who are willing to part with it than any other league, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I think that's the floor for, I think 20 million is somewhere where we would probably at least say yes, because there is that, it comes to a point, depending on when in the offseason we sell him, where it's a pressure point on like, okay, well, Miguel Almiron wants to go, and if you haven't sold him, then we're starting to lose a little bit of leverage. But in terms of Arsenal, I think, he would fit Unai Emery's system, because there are holes in that lineup where he might fit in as an 8, where he has that box to box. There is that Aaron Ramsey contract rebel thing where
he may not these guys,
or he might go anywhere. It's he's pretty coveted, although he does have his detracting things, but
injuries mostly.
But Miguel Almiron, with his work rate, with his pace, and his technical ability on the ball, would be perfect as that. Or I think at Dortmund, I think there's maybe a little bit too many attacking options that are much younger than he is, and
I would absolutely agree with that.
It's tougher to see him going there.
I think if you're Dortmund's biggest issue is they are much more of a selling club than Arsenal are. So if he went to Dortmund, their biggest issues right now, they want to play Christian Pulisic, they want to play Jadon Sancho. I mean, Sancho is really their jewel right now. As much as I love Christian Pulisic, Sancho made his England debut over the international break. He's a young player that moved on from Manchester City, good, and he's showing a lot of upside. He might not be there very long, but when it comes to prioritizing players, they like finding these young players that they can sell for a large amount of money and move on. I mean, I think he could fit in well in Dortmund, because they like to play a high-pressing, attacking system that I think he would fit well into. I don't know. I mean, you have older guys like Marco Reus who's still there. I mean,
it's a matter of
where he would fit in, where he would play. I don't know.
I think it's the transfer fee, because I don't think Dortmund really buys too heavily in that respect, where, if it was a 25, a 30, if they were... they're
not going to part with that unless they're 100% sure on a player. And that's not a slight on Miggy. It's just they're a bit more savvy when it comes. They sign players for cheap and sell them for more. I mean, look at an Ousmane Dembele, who they signed, as a teenager for not a lot of money, and then turn around 1 year later, even though he forced to move, but sell him for 150 million euros to a Barcelona. I mean, that's kind of their MO when it comes to buying players. So I don't know if they're a club that's willing to part with the money, around 20 or so million for Miguel Almiron type player. I think for the money we want, somewhere in England is probably where we'll be able to get that value, and he'll be able to play at a fast-paced game.
Right. So to sum that all up, probably Arsenal is a little bit more likely, although both have been just very weak links in terms of like the plausibility of that article, of the rumor itself.
And the money mentioned was just petty, so who knows? I mean, again, there's going to be a whole heck of a lot more rumors when it comes to that guy, especially if he can help, engineer Atlanta to an MLS Cup victory. If he does that, his asking price will go up, but also his suitors will definitely go up as well.
Agreed. Next question comes from Johan Luviano Pais MX. Thank you so much for that long name. He asks, if DC United goes to the playoffs, y'all think we should be worried? Absolutely.
Yep, 100%. I really don't want to see them, which is why I'm nervous they could finish 5th, because it is very likely Atlanta could finish 2nd, and I think that they are the much hotter teams if it came to them playing an NYCFC or a Philadelphia Union in that first wild card game. I'm not comfortable playing them in any shape or form. They would let the grass grow on the Howdy Field and make us play a very slow game and do all types of different dark arts in order to secure a result, not watering the pitch, whatever it is. And I'm not confident playing them because I'm worried. They're one of the few teams where I could see us going there and losing a game, 2-0, 3-1, something like that, and then having to come back and chase a game at the bins. And I'm not comfortable chasing a game at the Benz. I'm comfortable if a team comes to the Benz having to chase us because then they have to play. And if teams play us at home, well, that's not going to go well for them. We see how that usually goes.
Right. I think we'd be more comfortable facing like a Philadelphia Union for sure. I think that's, even a Columbus Crew, I feel like we'd be more comfortable, even though they're a little bit higher up in the standings. I think the fact is we beat a Columbus Crew more handily, a Union more handily, and it's one of those where they're not going to sit back as far because defensively in terms of the Union, it's not really anything to write home about. They're far more just an attacking bunch that wants to attack. So
they're a solid team, and the one game they had at the Benz this year was just absolute moments of madness. For sure. So you have your midfield basically get sent off. So it was kind of a dead rubber after that. But I just don't want to play DC. They're just a team that I think they're a bogey team. Although playing them in the playoffs and maybe beating them could just bury that demon. So who knows?
It's true. Yeah. I think we should welcome all comers anyway. But if there is trepidation, it is against DC United for sure. Next question comes from Slim Jin. They ask, what would happen if Almiron or Tata left or both left?
I think both probably going to leave at this point. I think that's very, very possible. I think that Pity Martinez is probably going to be a guy they're going to sign. I think there's been a lot of rumors about him. I think there's probably contact between players. I believe him and LGP were both at River Plate at the same time.
They were not.
Oh, were they not?
They were not.
Oh, well, that's a shame. Well,
but Tito and Kaku, apparently they're all like a triumvirate friend group.
I think that the Argentinian players at Atlanta are probably reaching out to players like that. I think in that regard where there's smoke, there's probably fire, because there's been a lot of reports from somewhat reliable people regarding Pity Martinez. 15 million euros is definitely a sum that I think Atlanta would be comfortable paying, especially if you're selling a Miguel Almiron on for 20 plus. So I think that would happen. In regards to what would happen if Tata left, I have no idea. There hasn't really been anyone aside from like Sampaoli mentioned. I'm not really keen on him because he was a shambles at the World Cup with Argentina. Before the World Cup, I would have possibly favored that idea because he had good spells in charge of Chile. But I really don't know. We're gonna find out for sure. I think Miggy, he's probably the most likely to leave, I'd say.
I think so, for sure.
Tata, there's still a possibility he stays, but again, we'll find out as soon as the season's over, I think, pretty quickly with Tata. I think we might have to wait a little bit as far as Miggy's concerned.
Yeah. And in terms of what would happen, it's just like, life goes on. We would find another manager. We would find another player to, replace the production. It's one of those, it's going to happen.
Club. It's going to happen, and we're going to lose more managers in the future and more good players. That's how the game works, especially when you're a club at this level. You're a feeder club. You're going to have your players come and you're having players go. Unless you're one of those top clubs in the world that's a destination club, then you don't have to worry about that. But, Atlanta is not a destination club. So,
to a degree.
To a degree. But
in MLS, we definitely are, and especially because of our facilities and because of our supporters, because of our stadium, city, and I guess maybe, to a degree, also our coach and our front office and the other players that we play with.
So in the league, it is a destination club. Outside of it, in the grand scheme of world football, we're not one of those. So if we have players who are really good, they're going to move on usually. So it's something we just have to accept and get used to, and it's just going to continue to happen. But hopefully, good teams can figure out how to deal with that and be successful still, and that's the goal of the front office. And if we're successful with those good players, then we'll have good players come through and move on, but we'll also have other good young players replacing them. So it's just going to be a never-ending cycle. But that's the life of a football fan.
Right. With a similar question, Owens0209 asks, with so much lost talent like Almiron and Tata, do you see us missing the playoffs next year? I don't see that. It's one of those where, this team, I think, very, very ambitious. They're going to replace any lost talent with at least like-minded talent. And also, you have to keep in mind, we're going into the second year of Ezequiel Barco, who, they paid all this transfer fee for. They definitely are high on him. And so, I think you'll see his production go up, especially being a little bit more higher usage. for sure. And
you have players like Bello being a year older, Carlton being a year older, so you might see more involvement from them. You might have other young players coming through, like possibly Alagos Kunga. So, I mean, you have players coming through the ranks that are good. Ideally, you still have Joseph Martinez, Atito Vijalba, Darlington Nagbe. Most of your defensive line will be there. Escobar will be coming into his second year and improving. So, I think that the team has a lot of talent there. And I trust the front office completely to find the right manager to, get these guys playing the way that they want and getting the results they need. Will they be setting records every single season? No, I don't expect that. But the club has put in place a structure to make sure that they, stay a strong and viable club regardless of who the manager is, throughout time. So that's the goal, that's the plan they went in. That's why they designed everything differently from, how MLS clubs have traditionally done things with, old aging players. So the model, it seems pretty solid. Will it be tested? Absolutely. We might not finish first every year. Maybe some seasons we, don't have a great season and just make the playoffs. But I think this is a club that will be in the playoffs more years than it won't be for sure.
Definitely. Next question comes from Denny's3. He says, "Hi guys, awesome show. My question is, if Atlanta doesn't win the Supporters' Shield, would it be considered a failure? Even though we've had a spectacular season, Joseph broke the record for most goals scored in a single season, and we still have a high chance to win the MLS Cup. Thank you." Thank you, Denny's, for the compliment. Yeah, I mean, we really appreciate your you watching and for your support. In terms of your question, I mean, I don't know if it's exactly, for me, a failure. I think for me, it's one of those things where, yes, the goals of the team, yes, was to win trophies, for sure. But I think that's kind of the stretch goal that happened. I think the initial goals coming into the season, yes, was to finish as high as possible, to break as many attendance records as possible, and just do as well as a team as possible. And I think in that regard, we're successful. Now, in terms of our stretch goal, now it's, the Supporters' Shield, it's almost in, we're in pole position. We need to win it. Can we win it now? And MLS Cup, that's always a difficult thing. I mean, this is probably the most crapshoot of them all. And so I think if we don't win that, I think it's okay. Would I want us to win it? Absolutely. And so, I think that should absolutely be the goal. And I would be very upset, obviously, if we didn't. But
I think it kind of gets into the whole interesting argument of, the way that you play versus, results. It's why Jose Mourinho continues to have a job. Because at the end of the day, he doesn't care what it looks like if you get a result. Atlanta have played really well, this year. They haven't played as well as they could have, in my opinion, at times, but they still play probably some of the best stuff in Major League Soccer. We've managed to see a lot of really great things happen this year. You have a chance to break the points record. You have Joseph Martinez breaking the goals record. All that being said, for me, that's all fine and well, but this is a club that has shown its intention is to win things. And Supporters' Shield isn't the end-all, be-all, but for me, I'd like to see them win something. And yeah, you can maybe break the points record and finish second. That's incredibly, successful in the sense of you set a record, but also you didn't win. So for me, I'd like to see them win something. If it's, if I had to pick one or the other, ideally I'd like to win MLS Cup. For me, Supporters' Shield means a little bit more because I'm not gonna lie, I'm new to being a fan in MLS because of this club. But there's something about being prideful, having the most points over a 34, league calendar. So I'd like to win something. One or the other, it doesn't matter to me. But to win nothing, is it a failure? I think it could be because you had a fantastic season, but you managed to not win anything. So for me, I think that they have to win some sort of silverware at some point in time for it to be considered an absolute success. But I don't think I consider an absolute failure if they didn't, but I would be very disappointed, I think, for sure.
Yeah, and that's what it boils down to is that, failure maybe is a little too strong of a word, but disappointment absolutely is the perfect word. I mean, we would be all disappointed for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those, I think, me terming it as a stretch goal, I think, if it was, and it is, I think, yeah, these, the MLS Cup is that stretch goal that now we want because we covet it and we can possibly get it, and we look in good position to get it. Yeah, I mean, that's where it is. It would be a disappointment for sure. But moving on into the match preview, it's the second to the last match of the season.
Penultimate game.
Penultimate game.
And it's that English word, they always use that in
for sure. Dramatic.
Penultimate game. It just builds that. It's like, it's the second to last. We need a cool name. Penultimate.
Yeah. And so it's this Sunday, 3 p.m. at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and it's against Chicago Fire. And we've had a little up and down season against, Chicago Fire, but not too bad where, in the league we've taken care of them. But, the previous matches against them, it's been, a decent, thing, but they just beat us in the cup and, they knocked us out. But
that was a bit of a frustrating game, but
for sure,
it is what it is. I guess it is the cup. I would have liked to have won something, but I mean, I'm not going to be too upset over the U.S. Open Cup.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't think Tata was really prioritizing it to begin with, anyway. So it is what it is. But so yeah, we've had some good matches against them, but. They recently haven't had the best run of luck for sure. I mean, it is not pretty, but it was a 2-1 loss to DC United. They fortunately won against LAFC 3-1, but NYCFC 2-0.
I mean, they sit second bottom. There's only one team in the East worse than them.
Yeah,
we all know who that is.
Mm-hmm.
They started
and they
off.
Beat them 4-0. So
they started off pretty well, but as the season went on, they have struggled very much. They have not had the goal production they had last year from a Nikolic. So it's, last year he scored a lot. Mind you, he does have 15 goals this year, but last year he was banging them in when he needed to get them results. And that just has not been happening nearly as much this season as it was last year.
And if you have a, Schweinsteiger playing center back and he's leading your team with 5 assists, yeah, it's just your team is kind of in shambles at the moment. And so it's one of those type of games where we might need to really make sure that we don't make it a trap game for sure.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those don't make it a trap game, but it's also a game where because Atlanta has something to play for. Chicago Fire absolutely do not. Atlanta need a result against a struggling team. Who knows how they're going to come in and play? I mean,
they could come in
and try to play. Because what else do they have to play for? It should be interesting. They could come and sit, but they also know that like you said, they could be playing that spoiler role of they can beat Atlanta United, and then that kind of turns everything on its head as far as the supporter shield goes, and it really gives Red Bull that opening. But I don't know. I mean, I think the biggest issue for Atlanta United is who's going to play where, because you have some injury question marks lingering over the team.
Definitely. Yeah, Miggy is still week to week, according to Carlos Bocanegra. He said that on 929. And, Tito Villalba, he picked up a little knock in training with Paraguay, and the extent of that is still unknown. So, we don't know if he's going to be available for selection or not. We'll find out later in the week, so you can stay tuned with our social media regarding that. But the implications are this. So Atlanta United can clinch the supporter shield if we win and New York Red Bulls lose. It's that simple.
That would open up a 4-point gap with 1 game to play. 3 points does not equal 4. Happy days. Yeah. I'm curious if that happened. Would the shield be in the building on Sunday? Because if you win it, you'd like to raise it in front of your home fans.
They probably at least have it ready.
At least have it ready. But I don't know. I mean, Red Bulls have a somewhat difficult game against Philadelphia in Philadelphia, so we'll see what happens there. But that would be fantastic, because that would make that Toronto game, in a sense, mean nothing, which would be quite nice for me. It'd be some stress off my shoulders, at least in terms of watching that game.
For sure, yeah. I mean, you want them to be in like tip-top, like competitive form going to the last game or whatnot. But I think the earlier you can wrap it up, for the fans' sake, it's just a lot easier on the minds.
I'm new to the whole being an Atlanta sports fan type thing, so if you can win it before the last game, that would be fantastic, because apparently things don't really go well when it comes to Atlanta teams trying to win championships.
Yeah, it's a thing, but we'll get past that. But and I believe we can get past that. But so that gets us into our predicted formations for this match, and I think for me it's I think it's a 4-3-3, but it's not the 4-3-3 that we've seen on the Atlanta United lineup cards. It's definitely a little bit different, I think, because with Miguel Miron iffy, with Tito Villalba iffy. I think it's Guzan. I think it's Bello coming in left back, or staying as left back. LGP, Parkey, and Escobar coming back in. You have Loretowitz, Remedi, and Nagbe in that 3-man midfield. And then up top, as our forwards, we have, I think it's Barco on the left, Gressel on the right, and Joseph up top.
Yeah, I would agree with you pretty much on that. I think that's, for me, if Tito's out, that probably suits you the most when it comes to, putting, round pegs in round holes, putting players where they're going to be at their most comfortable. I don't know if we kind of discussed the idea of maybe a 4-2-3-1 with Nagy moving into that kind of forward line, but him, the only places he really plays would be on the left or in the middle, and I think you'd have him and Barco kind of occupying some of the same spaces. If Tito is out, I think the natural move is to move Gressel up into that right wing position, because why wouldn't you? Yeah. You can bring Escobar in at that point in time. Unless Tito's healthy, I don't see us playing a 3-5-2 again. I don't see the need to play a 3-5-2 because Chicago, again, they're not very good. Why do you need to pull an extra man out of midfield when you can have that player in midfield, further up the pitch, push them higher, and go get the goals? I mean, I'd like to see them beat this team and beat them quickly, beat them comfortably. I think that's a team that can do both of those things too, and maybe have some players coming out later in the game, like a Joseph, especially if you have a big game coming up next week, because you don't need anyone getting injured. So, yeah, I think the 4-3-3 is probably about the best formation in terms of fitting the players who are fit, who are your best players, into the team without having to put someone in an uncomfortable position.
Right. And it's also, some of you might be wondering, like, why isn't Nagbe being played up a little higher, maybe in the cam position or something like that. It's one of those, I think, of course, Barco could play that position as well. Of course, not a lot of you are too high on Barco as well, but you have that dynamic, I think, that both hold possession very well. And Barco will, cut in, of course, but Nagbe also has played a little bit more, like, on the heat maps at least. You see him playing more on the right. And, having both of those guys, just controlling the game a little bit more will create a lot of chances for Joseph, for Gressel, and for the fullbacks that push up as well. I think I think it will bode well against a very weak Chicago side, and it's that gets us into our predicted scoreline. So, what do you think is going to happen?
I'm feeling a 3-1. I think that we're going to beat them comfortably, but also we're going to ship our obligatory crap goal at some point in time in the game to cost us a clean sheet. I think that they're a team that we should absolutely beat. We should look to beat them, and I think we will beat them. It's just a matter for me of how much it is. I wish it would be more than that. I like a clean sheet, but again, I think the 3 points are on the cards for Atlanta United this weekend. Yeah,
I agree. I think somehow, like Schweinsteiger's gonna, do his obligatory, shot from distance and score it as well, and it's just like, all right.
Just be one of those, really, guys.
Yeah, but I'll take the 3 points regardless, and no matter which way we get it, I think if it's a scrappy win, if it's just completely ugly, and we get 3 points, I do not care at this point. I think we just need to get 3 points. So, but that gets us into our question of the day.
Yep, and our question of the day, it's kind of a downer in a sense of, well, it's about Tata Martino. With all the rumors going around, our question is, if Tata Martino were to leave Atlanta United, which club or preferably country would you like to see him go to, or do you think he will go to? Because let's be honest, none of us are going to like seeing him go anywhere.
It's true. He's been linked with a lot of countries now, and really no clubs. So, let us know in the comments below, and we look forward to reading your comments. And guys, it's time to announce the winner of the 50th episode giveaway. So congratulations to Andani Angeles. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but you win a brand new copy of FIFA 19 and a t-shirt from our merch store. And we want to really thank everybody who's watched us to this point to get us to our 50th episode. We really appreciate all you watching and for your support. It means a lot to us. And so,
just a big thank you to everyone, for sure.
Thank you so much. But that's it for us today. Remember to subscribe if you haven't. smash that like button and share this video because it really does help us a lot. And for Tanner McLeod, I'm AJ. Thank you guys so much for watching.